The fork never made it to her mouth. She was holding it midair, some overpriced mushroom ravioli wobbling at the end, when my words landed. I know about the hotel. Her hand froze. Her eyes didn't move, but I saw it. The pulse in her neck jumped. A ripple in her perfect posture. Just enough to confirm it. Around us, the restaurant buzzed with clinking glasses and soft jazz. No one noticed the implosion happening at table 14. She set the fork down slowly. Took a sip of wine like she needed to rinse the lie off her tongue before she even spoke. And then, as if she hadn't just detonated our marriage hours earlier, she said, "You're embarrassing yourself." I didn't raise my voice. I didn't flip the table. I just slid my phone across the linen cloth toward her. A photo. Room 238. Her coat on the chair. A man's belt on the floor. I didn't even know his name yet. She looked at the screen. Blinked once. Tilted her head slightly, like an art critic studying a painting she didn't particularly like. Then she laughed. Laughed. "You went through my stuff?" That's what she chose to focus on. Not the betrayal. Not the months of deceit. Not the fact that she came home at 3:47 a.m. 2 nights ago and said the client meeting had run late. No, she was upset because I had violated her privacy. And maybe I had. But that night, after she left the restaurant without finishing her plate, after she slammed the door at home and said I was spiraling again, after she curled up on my side of the bed and fell asleep with her back turned to me like I was the problem, I knew I had a choice. I could play dumb. I could grovel. I could pretend I hadn't seen what I'd seen, just like I pretended every other time I noticed how she smiled at her phone and angled the screen away from me. Or I could finally stop pretending. And the next morning, in front of his friends, the same ones who'd laughed at me behind closed doors, I gave her the choice she never saw coming. Do exactly as I say, or pack your bags. The look on her face? That was the first honest thing she'd shown me in months. She didn't say anything at first. Her mouth opened just slightly, like she was about to fire back something cold and cruel, but she didn't. For the first time in a long time, she looked unsure. Not guilty. Not ashamed. Just surprised. Zeke and the others, the friends of his, were frozen mid-laughter. One of them, some scrawny guy with a mustache he definitely couldn't grow in high school, actually coughed a piece of chip onto the table. I could feel every eye in the room lock onto us. Nobody moved. Nobody blinked. Even the music in the background sounded like it turned itself down to listen. I had never said anything like that to her before. Not once. In 7 years of marriage, I was the peacemaker, the apologizer, the "I'll sleep on the couch if that helps" guy. I was the guy who said, "Maybe she's just tired," when she ignored me. The guy who offered to cook dinner and do the dishes after she rolled her eyes at me in front of company. But that morning, after finding yet another receipt for a lunch I never ate, from a place I'd never been, right before she got stuck in traffic for the 3rd time that week, something in me cracked open. And it didn't bleed. It burned. So I gave her the ultimatum. Do what I say, or pack your bags. What I didn't expect was how much I meant it. I stood there, waiting for her answer. My legs were shaking, but I kept my voice calm. She glanced toward the hallway like she might walk away again. But there was no exit that wouldn't look like surrender. Not here. Not now. Not in front of the people she'd paraded me in front of for months as her sweet little husband who couldn't change a tire if his life depended on it. And then she did something I'll never forget. She smiled. Not a real smile, a weaponized one. The kind she used at work presentations and on Instagram posts with captions like, "Grateful, growing, grounded, dizzy." The kind of smile that said, "I'm still in control. I'll stay," she said, brushing invisible lint off her sweater like my threat had been a gust of wind. "But let's not pretend you're suddenly the man of the house, Emory." I think that was the moment I realized she was never going to apologize. She was never going to fall to her knees and cry and say she made a mistake. She wasn't built for remorse. She was built for reinvention. She'd spin the story 100 ways before she ever admitted the truth, even to herself. So she stayed. But something had changed. In her eyes. In mine. We didn't talk for the rest of the night. Zeke made some excuse and left with his boys. I sat on the couch for hours, staring at the wall, listening to her move around upstairs like nothing had happened. And when I finally went to bed, I found her already under the covers, phone in hand, scrolling. I lay down next to her. I didn't say a word, but I knew what I had to do next. Not for revenge, not even for justice. just to prove to myself that I wasn't crazy, that the man's belt in that hotel room wasn't the only thing she'd left behind. At first, I thought the belt was a mistake, an oversight, a moment of panic where she rushed to leave and forgot the one piece of evidence that could unravel her whole show. But the more I thought about it, the less it made sense. Calla was calculated, not clumsy. The woman color-coded our spice rack. She double-checked the locks every night. She once canceled a dinner reservation because the lighting wasn't flattering for her skin tone. She didn't forget belts. So why would she leave his? I stared at that photo on my phone 100 times. His belt curled like a dead snake on the carpet, next to her purse, the one she said she'd lost months ago. Room 238. The curtains drawn just enough to let in slits of morning light. A glass on the nightstand still half full. 2 toothbrushes in the bathroom, one of them blue. I never used a blue toothbrush. I didn't sleep that night. I watched her instead. She slept like the innocent do, mouth slightly open, one arm draped across the pillow, her phone tucked beneath it like a secret she didn't even bother hiding. I could hear the faint buzz of a notification, but she didn't flinch. She was at peace. Meanwhile, my chest was tight. My skin felt wrong. Like my whole body knew something my brain hadn't caught up to yet. Around 4 a.m., I got up, walked downstairs, sat at the kitchen table with my laptop, and opened her cloud account. She never signed out. Never needed to. I was too passive to pry. Or I used to be. There were no texts, no photos, no traces of anything recent. Except one folder. It wasn't named suspiciously, just drafts. Inside were PDFs. At first glance, I thought they were work documents, client proposals, layout designs, brand guides. But one of them was a script. Not a real one. Not for work. It was a conversation. Her words. His responses. Typed out. Practiced. I scrolled through in a daze. Calla, we can't keep doing this. Zeke. Then tell him. Calla, I will. After the party. There were 5 different versions. 5 possible paths. Each one with a different outcome. In one, she leaves me. In another, she says she needs space. In the darkest one, she lies to both of us. Tells him I'm abusive. Tells me he's gay. Blames it all on confusion and trauma and wine. I read them all. Twice. My hands were cold. My stomach was hollow. She hadn't just cheated, she planned the fallout. She rehearsed the lies. But the worst part? She never sent any of them. Because she didn't need to. She didn't want to end things. She wanted power. The upper hand. The control of knowing she could detonate our life anytime she wanted. And I'd still clean up the mess. That's when I realized the belt wasn't a mistake. It was bait. And like the obedient, desperate little husband I was, I took it. I didn't confront her. I didn't scream, cry, or even hint that I'd seen her little script rehearsal. That would have given her too much. She'd spin it, turn it into my fault, claim I was violating her trust, spiraling, being paranoid again. She was good at that, twisting the knife and convincing me it was a back massage. So instead, I played dumb, smiled when she smiled, kissed her cheek when she left for work. But every moment felt like a dress rehearsal for a scene I no longer believed in. The worst part? I still wanted her to love me. I still hoped that if I could just be a little better, a little stronger, a little more something, she might stop needing him. Or needing control. Or whatever it was she was chasing when she walked into that hotel room. But I also knew I couldn't keep bleeding in silence. I had to do something. Not to expose her, not yet, but to see. To understand the full scope of what I was living inside of. So I started setting little traps. Quiet ones. Traps that wouldn't make noise, only ripples. The first was simple. I told her I'd be working late. A fake freelance gig at a co-working space across town. She didn't ask questions. Just nodded, barely lifting her eyes from her phone. That night, I parked 2 blocks away from our house and waited. For hours. Nothing. No one came. No one left. Lights off by 10. It was either a clean night, or she was better at hiding than I realized. The second trap was more invasive. I left one of my old shirts, the one she used to sleep in, inside her gym bag, tucked deep beneath the leggings and deodorant. She never noticed, or pretended not to. But a few days later, the shirt ended up back in my drawer, washed, folded, not a word said. She was watching me back. The third one almost broke me. I installed an old phone behind the dresser in our bedroom. Voice-activated recording app, silent notifications, airplane mode. I told myself it was just to catch her tone. The way she spoke when I wasn't in the room. I wasn't expecting much. Maybe a call, a whispered giggle, a slip-up. What I got wasn't what I expected. She spoke to herself, out loud, when brushing her hair, when getting dressed. I listened to the entire file the next day, hands shaking. She said my name twice. Not sweetly, not with regret, mocking it, practicing it. Emory, you're being dramatic. Emory, you're imagining things again. Emory, I've told you 100 times, I love you. That one hit like a brick to the ribs. She was rehearsing again. Not texts this time, lines. Lines for a play I didn't even know I was in. Words designed to keep me tethered, keep me guessing, keep me small. And worst of all, it worked. I still cooked for her. Still rubbed her back when she said her shoulders hurt. Still kissed her when she left in the morning, knowing she probably had his cologne on her somewhere beneath the vanilla perfume. But that night, as I stood in the dark kitchen listening to her footsteps upstairs, I realized something else. She wasn't just cheating on me. She was studying me. Like I was a subject in her little social experiment. How far can a man bend before he snaps? And I wasn't sure how close I was to finding the answer. I stopped saying good morning. It wasn't a dramatic decision. I didn't stand in the mirror and vow to go cold. It just stopped. One morning, I heard her heels on the hardwood, smelled her perfume, bergamot, and something sharper underneath, and I stayed in bed. Eyes open, breathing steady, silent. She paused by the door longer than usual. It wasn't about the greeting itself. It was about routine. She'd built her power on my predictability. The way I always smiled when she entered a room. The way I'd ask if she needed anything before I poured my own coffee. The way I always said drive safe, like I still believed she was coming back from where she claimed to be. Breaking the pattern was small, but it was enough to rattle her. That same day, I didn't text her at lunch. She didn't text me either. But when she got home, I caught her glancing at my phone screen twice during dinner. She said nothing about it, but her left foot tapped under the table. She was recalculating, rewriting her script. It was working, so I took it further. The next morning, I moved my toothbrush to the guest bathroom. Didn't announce it. Didn't explain. Just stopped using the one next to hers. She noticed. I know she did. The bristles on her own toothbrush started fraying faster, like she was brushing harder. More aggressively. Maybe she thought I could taste guilt in the air between our sinks. Then I started going on walks. Long ones. At night. No pattern. No destination. Sometimes I just sat in the car at the edge of town and stared at the gas station lights reflecting off the windshield. I wanted her to wonder. And she did. One night, when I came back later than usual, she was sitting at the kitchen island, wine glass in hand, untouched. The bottle was full. Her phone was face down, something she never did. She asked me where I went. I smiled. Just a walk. Where? Nowhere. I could see the gears grinding behind her eyes. For a moment, I thought she might ask more. Push. Demand. But instead she forced a tight smile and said, "That's nice." I went upstairs. 10 minutes later, I heard the bathroom door lock behind her. Water running. Too long to be washing hands. Too short to be a shower. She was calling someone. I knew it in my bones. But I didn't press my ear to the door. I didn't need to. That wasn't the game anymore. The next evening, she texted me. Not from across town. Not during a fake meeting. From the guest bedroom. "Are you okay?" The irony nearly made me laugh out loud. She was trying to reel me back in. Because uncertainty scared her more than confrontation. She didn't love me. She loved controlling me. And I was slipping out of her grasp. But what she didn't know, what I hadn't even admitted to myself yet, was that I wasn't planning revenge. Not really. I just wanted to see what she'd do if the mirror cracked. If she looked into it and saw something she hadn't prepared for. And I didn't have to wait long. Because 2 days later, I followed her. Not out of jealousy. Out of curiosity. And what I found wasn't what I expected. It was worse. It wasn't difficult to follow her. She didn't even look over her shoulder. She wasn't worried about being caught. Not because she was careful, but because she believed I was still too broken, too obedient, too Emory to do anything bold. But I had become something else. Something I didn't recognize. And maybe, something she never anticipated. She told me she had a networking mixer across town. Corporate. Creative types. Nothing spouses would enjoy, she said. It's not your kind of crowd, she added, brushing past me with that soft smiling cruelty she'd perfected over the years. I didn't answer. Just nodded. Let her believe I'd stay home and overthink it like always. Instead, I waited 10 minutes, then got in my car. She didn't go downtown. She didn't go anywhere near the venue she mentioned. She drove to a modest house on a quiet street I'd never seen before. Not a hotel, not a fancy apartment, just a house. Pale green paint, cracked steps, an overgrown yard with a half-dead lawn flamingo out front. She knocked twice. No one answered at first. Then the porch light flicked on, and the door opened. I recognized the silhouette immediately. It wasn't Zeke. It wasn't any of her smug little office friends. It was Aiden, her brother-in-law. Not by blood, by her sister's second marriage. The one she always said was barely part of the family. The one she once told me she felt sorry for, because he had a drinking problem and never really fit in. I hadn't seen him in over a year. She went inside. The door closed. I sat in my car, hands trembling, brain screaming at me to go knock, to confront, to do something. But I didn't. I couldn't. My body was frozen, my heart slamming against my ribs like it wanted out. 20 minutes passed. Then 45. Then an hour. I started making up stories in my head. Maybe he needed help. Maybe she was checking in on him. Maybe this had nothing to do with. And then the lights upstairs flicked on. 2 shadows. Moving. Slow. Close. Intertwined. My stomach dropped. Not because I had confirmation. Because this wasn't just betrayal. This was selection. She didn't fall into something. She chose this. Out of every man, every opportunity, every moment, she chose someone no one would suspect. Someone outside her work, her friends, our world. She chose a man who barely existed in our lives anymore, which meant she could erase him again, just as easily. And me? I was just the anchor. The decoy. The loyal pet keeping the house warm while she played God in someone else's bed. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, she returned home wearing the same earrings she left in, like she hadn't even bothered to pretend she slept anywhere else. She made coffee, hummed, kissed my cheek. I let her, not because I forgave her, because I had to see how far she was willing to go. And that night, I found something in her purse, something that didn't belong to her. A receipt, 2 cups of coffee, 1 slice of lemon cake, a timestamp, from the day after I confronted her at the dinner party. She wasn't done. She never was. And I was just beginning to understand the depth of the performance I was trapped inside. I thought the worst part was the cheating. But it wasn't. It was realizing she never loved any of us. Not me. Not Aiden. Not even herself. She loved the performance. It started with a pattern I almost missed. Something so small, so seemingly irrelevant. It didn't even register until I was combing through old calendar notifications on our shared account, something I hadn't touched in over a year. There was an entry marked simply, liaison. Recurring. Every 3 weeks. Midday. I never noticed it because it fell between her client lunches and network syncs. The kind of gray areas where people disappear and come back wearing the same smile they left with. Out of curiosity, I clicked one of the older entries. There was a location pinned. A private co-working loft above a candle store downtown. I remembered she mentioned it once, said it was too bohemian for her taste. That was a lie. I drove there the next day. Didn't go inside. Just watched. 2 people went in separately. A man in his 50s with a cane. A woman wearing sunglasses indoors. Neither was Aiden. Neither was me. My wife had a third. Or maybe a fourth. A fifth. It wasn't about love. It wasn't even about sex. It was about control. Dominance. Intimacy that served her. Stories that revolved around her. Emotional theater she could direct, manipulate, rewrite at will. I know how that sounds. I know what you're thinking, that I'm spiraling, seeing ghosts. But you weren't there when I found the folder. Not the one on her laptop. A real one. In the back of the closet. Labeled witness. Inside were letters. Printed emails. Handwritten notes. Screenshots. Not love letters. Not apologies. But rehearsals. Drafts. Outlines. Diagrams. She mapped out entire emotional arcs. Manipulated timelines. Coordinated who would see what and when. There were entire breakdowns of arguments we'd had, complete with alternative endings. In one version, I'm the villain. In another, I'm the tragic martyr. In both, she wins. And worst of all, there was a recording. Just one. I found a flash drive taped to the bottom of the folder. My name was written on it in red marker. At first, I didn't want to play it. But I did. Her voice filled the room. Clear, calm, calculated. By the time he finds this, he'll be too far gone to confront me. That's the beauty of it. Emory needs resolution like air. and I'll leave him with none. There was laughter. Soft. Almost pitying. He thinks he's investigating me. But really, I'm documenting him. Every reaction. Every silence. Every choice. I'm building a character. I paused the file. I couldn't breathe. I had spent months thinking I was catching her. But I was the story all along. Not the betrayed husband. The subject. The study. The puppet bleeding on command. And suddenly everything made sense. The delayed reactions. The over-rehearsed apologies. The way she always left just enough behind for me to find. I was never meant to leave. I was meant to watch. To play the role of the man who stayed just long enough to fall apart. So she could turn me into a cautionary tale. A tragic subplot in whatever twisted narrative she was crafting for whoever was next. But the story wasn't over yet. Because for the first time since this all began, I didn't feel broken. I felt awake. And I wasn't going to be her character anymore. She noticed the silence first. Not the angry kind. Not the cold-shoulder performance she was used to engineering, where I'd sulk in the other room, and she'd breeze in 2 hours later with a kiss and a sideways apology. No, this silence was something deeper. Something unfamiliar. I wasn't angry. I just wasn't there. I stopped reacting. Stopped asking questions. Stopped trying to outmaneuver her games. I didn't confront her about the recordings. I didn't demand an explanation for the witness folder or the web of lies she'd strung between lovers like Christmas lights. Because I finally understood. She couldn't exist without the stage. And I had been the audience all along. So I stepped away from the spotlight. It was subtle at first. I packed one bag. Left it in my car. No drama. No slammed doors. Just preparation. I rerouted my paycheck to a separate account. Signed a lease on a small, unremarkable apartment across town. Bought my own sheets, my own dishes, a cheap lamp that looked like something out of a college dorm. And then one morning, bright, blue, still, I left. No letter. No voicemail. No text. I didn't know her a final act. For a while, I kept waiting for the storm. The message. The accusation. The manipulation. But it never came. I wasn't interesting to her anymore. Without conflict. Without tears. Without the broken husband pacing the floor and asking, why? Over and over again. I was useless to her narrative. She moved on quickly. I saw her tagged in a few photos online. New people. Same smiles. Same captions. Rebirth. Growth. Alignment. I didn't feel anger. Just distance. Sometimes I catch myself watching the coffee brew in my quiet little kitchen and realizing how peaceful it is to exist without constantly being observed, assessed, twisted into someone else's idea of weak. I still don't understand everything. I probably never will. But that's the point. Some people live their lives writing scripts they'll never follow, manipulating characters they never cared about, choreographing heartbreak just to see how it echoes off the walls. But not me. Not anymore. I go for walks now. Real ones. Not to bait her, not to disappear, just to feel the sun. I cook for myself, even if it's just rice and eggs. I bought a plant. It died. I bought another. It didn't. And every now and then, I catch my reflection in the mirror and don't flinch. I'm still quiet. Still soft. Still Emory. But I'm not her character anymore. I'm just free. And that's more than enough.